It appears that when many atheists wish to be poetic about their atheism, claiming that it is freedom of the mind and liberation from the tyranny of religion, it becomes something positive. The moment it is challenged on these grounds, it sulks back into the hole in which its masters dug. So it's clearly true that there are atheists in foxholes, especially in the intellectual sense.
Though you try hard to make it seem like there's a contradiction here, there really is no contradiction here. Not believing something can be positive and uplifting. It doesn't have to be a positive assertion. These two are mutually unrelated. For instance, not believing that there's a global conspiracy of bankers bent on controlling everybody in the world is very uplifting. That is not to say that I believe that no such conspiracy exists. I've just looked at the arguments for said conspiracy and found them unconvincing. Likewise, not believing that extraterrestrial aliens are zipping around the planet and probing innocent people in unmentionable areas is a very uplifting and positive belief. It's very liberating to know that my orifices are safe while I sleep. But I don't have any positive belief that this is not happening. I've simply looked at the evidence for it and found it unconvincing.
But even if the atheist admits that they must justify their claims and that they have a belief, they may say that they still do not shoulder the burden of proof based on the maxim that evidence is necessary to believe in God. But this belief also has a burden, if it is asserted as a claim. All positive claims must shoulder the burden of proof, whether they be from the atheist or theist, so there are no exceptions.
Granted, this is probably the first logical thing you've said in your entire video. Those who hold positive beliefs must logically account for them. But like I showed earlier, there is no positive belief in the statement, I do not believe there is a God. However, the statement, there is a God, is a positive assertion. You start off by asserting that atheists have positive belief that God does not exist, in order to turn around and conclude that because we have this positive belief in God's non-existence, which you assign to us, we now shoulder the burden of proof. This is a fallacy, namely a straw man. You can take this argument up with any atheist who actually tells you that they know that God doesn't exist. I'm not one of those. Very few atheists are one of those. Now, this is what your entire video is about, so I find the idea that you would create a video which, by your own words, is designed in order to critique the notion of negative atheism by arguing that positive atheism imposes the burden of proof on its proponents is a non sequitur. What does one have to do with the other? What does the fact that positive atheism has a burden of proof have to do with those who hold a negative atheistic position?
For now, let me attack the assertion that evidence is required for theism to be rational. I do not believe this is the case, as I explain in my next video, but I also feel that the common maxim that many atheists employ, that it is irrational to believe something without empirical evidence, is unjustified. Well, I think that to say that it is irrational to believe something without good reason is justified. The former statement is not.
Really, evidence is not the only clash between your beliefs and rationalism. It is only your first problem. I'll assume you already know what the burden of proof is, since your entire video is a not so elaborate argument to duck it. So let's begin our little list, problems with the concept of God, and say that the first problem is evidence. Second problem, burden of proof. Third problem, objectivity. You see, rationalism demands objectivity when analyzing claims. That means that even if I allow you to discard evidence and the burden of proof for your beliefs about God, you also have to discard evidence and burden of proof for your beliefs about anything else. In other words, by discarding evidence and the burden of proof from your analysis, you are rationally compelled to believe any proposition that anyone puts to you about anything. It doesn't seem mad enough to you already. Think about the fact that the removal of evidence and the burden of proof also raises the problem of contradiction. Being compelled as you are to accept as true anything that anybody puts to you, you will undoubtedly face mutually irreconcilable claims. Jesus was the Son of God. Jesus was not the Son of God, without evidence and without the burden of proof, how would you adjudicate between those claims? This, of course, is unless you wish to discard objectivity, in the same way you did evidence and the burden of proof. And if you did that, you could resolve your contradiction problems. And by resolve here, I mean completely ignore. So let me rename my list. Things you have to ditch to make God rational. The aforementioned evidence, burden of proof, objectivity, non-contradiction. Get rid of all those and your belief in God is rational. If there's anything left in rationalism at this point.
Empirical evidence should not be expected for something that is claimed to be immaterial, or that sort of skepticism must in fact prove that an immaterial entity can be detected empirically before the claim is accepted that empirical data is necessary for its detection.
To claim that God is immaterial is in itself an assumption that begs to be justified. I will grant you the possibility, provided you can even show me that this immaterial exists. You're claiming that an immaterial realm exists, which is itself undetectable. The problem is obvious. If it's undetectable, how do you even know that it exists? And how could you know anything about what is in this material realm? To think that I would have to prove to you that God is detectable by material means before I attempt to disprove him, her, it, is to already grant you that such a thing as the immaterial exists. Of course, I don't know that it doesn't exist, but here the burden of proof strikes once again. Prove to me that there is such a thing as an immaterial realm, and show me how you know what is in and what isn't in this material realm, which is simultaneously undetectable. Otherwise, this entire argument is just a magic trick, and this entire project is a waste of time.